Hey guys, I should be live. I'm just making sure in the dashboard that everything is good. Yeah, it looks like we are connected. Any second now, I should be seeing the stream come through. And yeah, I think we are good to go. All right, hello there. Good to have you guys in the stream again. I see Dragona. Hello there. How are you doing? Melanie Savage. Goedenavond. Goedenavond, Melanie. And hello to everyone. I see Dodzor. I see Lexman Man. Excellent. Hey guys. Good to be with you guys again. So let me see. I need to just shift. Actually, no, I don't have to shift it over. I'll just do that. So before we begin, are there any questions? Does anyone have anything that they want to ask? Or anything you want to mention? Hey, Erkan, how are you doing? Good to see you again. Uh, yeah. So then I should actually, yeah, I just finished. So I just want to set up my, yeah. So, okay. I will just set up OneNote and there we go. I'm just going to shift that over. I'm going to make this large enough and zoom that out. All right, so yeah, you guys should be able to see this clearly without any problems. Marek, dzień dobry. Dobry wieczór. Yeah, so yeah, I guess we're all good to go. My stats look good. Everything is proceeding well. Yeah, guys. So last week we were talking as well about the Crusades. We were speaking about the Jihad. We were speaking about the Dobre. Yeah. So yeah, we were talking about how the Islamic Crusades are predicated on their ideology, how the Crusades were a response, a very necessary and critical response, and if they had not happened, Islam would have swallowed all of Christendom. So I got these comments. I got these comments from a couple of the guys, and it might be worth mentioning these things, right? So I think it was Peter Shearer that said, perhaps when you discuss the Barbary pirates, you might discuss Hudna. Hudna translates basically as truces or treaties, treaties of peace, right? So Jefferson, and he says here, Jefferson as president won the first war and a treaty was signed. 10 years later, the Tripolitan states repudiated the first treaty in 1815 and went to war again, and they lost again. Because in Islam, treaties are valid for periods of 10 years at a time. They may be renewed, however, they are renewed for 10 years at a time. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Stephen. How are you doing? Right. So these treaties are renewed for 10 years. That's called Hudna. So you can make a peace treaty if you are weak. If you are weak. If you are not weak, if the Islamic forces are not weak, hi Steffi. If the Islamic forces are not weak, they are required to go to war. They have to fight the infidels, us, to impose Islam. This is their law. Now, so 10 years later, they broke the treaty. However, they may also break this treaty prior to that because breaking a treaty is required. So remember, when the Muslims, and I'll cover a little bit of this later. So when Muslims are uppermost, and as Erkin says here, and preferred not to be renewed. Yes, it is preferred that they fight and that they are dominant rather than weak, subservient. Um, yes, Yahya, if you're going to be an irritation, I will get rid of you eventually. Do understand. Now, it is preferred under Islamic law that they do not make peace. It is preferred that they actually fight. Hi, Villainous, how are you doing? Good to see you. So, if in under 10 years they gain sufficient military strength to actually attack, then they are to do so. Because it does say that if they are uppermost, they should then just go back to war. They should impose their will. And they are not to remain subservient to the Kafir. Then I've got another comment that said, remember, okay, Jefferson beat Tripoli. 10 years later, the Muslims broke it. And the second US Tripolitan War began. And the important issue is Hudna, I suppose, but the other is that the West has hidden the Muslim basis, and the Tripolitan Muslims are called pirates. Right. So that comment hopefully is helpful to understand. Now, I did not go into detail. Of course, I made mention of these books where you can learn more about this history. I would just refute when I feel you are not telling the truth. Now look, Yahya, you are an annoyance. You do work to distract. You don't listen to what is presented. You deny your own Sharia. You deny your own major scholars, the four Imams. You deny your own Sahih. right? Simply because you're a liar. You're a liar, and that's simply what it is, right? So if you say that I lie when I literally read out of your own Islamic texts from the four Imams who are supposedly infallible, unable to make a mistake, then you are saying that your own scholars are liars. Refuse to debate you and prove me. Well, how about you bring the Sharia? How about you show me from the correct Sharia manual, the ones that you use in your mosque, that your sheikhs use, that I am wrong? Tell me which school of fiqh is the correct one. And if you can't do that, because I want you to give me the full legal definition of jihad from more than one Sharia manual, provide me the full Shari ruling of jihad, right? Because seriously, you are just a miserable little liar. Show me the full legal ruling on jihad from the four schools. Do that. Why would I debate you? You are, seriously, you are dishonest. You are incredibly dishonest. Now, yes, you're a troll and waste of time. So let's move on. Okay. So remember, this is what's left. What you see here is what is left of what was once Christendom. You know, unless you can show me the next words out of your mouth, right? The next words that you're going to show me is the Shari ruling of jihad from the major scholars. You will also show me the very next term that you will write is the definition of ridda. What is the ruling on apostasy in Islam? I want to see it. We all know what it is. I want you to show me from the Shari manuals, right? You will do that. Otherwise, I will not entertain any further comments from you. So you'll be put in timeout. Your very next comment will be the ruling on Ridda, the ruling on apostasy, or the ruling on jihad from a legitimate, recognized Sharia manual. And don't try to fool me. I know these better than you do. Right, so now let's have a little, again, I'll recap a little bit of what was said. So hold on, Stephen Gilchrist said he doesn't have a clue what Islam teaches or he's practicing taqiyya. He knows nothing about Islam. He'll destroy him hands down. I'm fairly sure of that. And all he does is attack the Bible. He actually doesn't present the fiqh of the four schools. He needs to present the fiqh. He cannot do that. In fact, it's not legal for him to do so. He's unable to do so. Right. So now, historian Bernard Lewis said for almost 1,000 years, the first Moorish landing in Spain in 711 to the second Turkish siege of Vienna, Europe was under constant threat of Islam. All but the easternmost provinces of the Islamic realm had been taken from Christian rulers. So North Africa, so what we had was something like 10,000 churches across North Africa were destroyed by the Islamic invasions. And remember, they must destroy what comes from the past prior to Islam. That is from the time of the Jahiliyyah, right? This is the time of ignorance, the time of barbarism prior to the arrival of Islam on the scene. So everything prior to Islam must be destroyed, must be removed, right? Must be wiped from the earth, because that is from the time of barbarism and falsehood. So Steffi Calligraphy says, right, they do this a lot, try to distract from the garbage on their own books by making pitiful attacks on the Bible, which almost none of them have actually read correct. And as we know, they've not even read the Quran. They haven't even read their own scriptures. So even less have they read the Bible. So understand they're repeating polemics which were written in the 13th and 14th centuries. So a man called Ibn Hazm first developed the anti-Christian polemics, the anti-biblical polemics. Now, not much. I will leave you in peace and comment another times. I don't wish to distract you, and you should be pleased now. Yes, we're very pleased. Everyone's happy that you're gone. So now Ibn Hazm developed the anti-Christian polemics, and he influenced students like Ibn Taymiyyah, one of the Sheikh ul-Islam, right, one of the 28 absolutely top scholars of Islam. Ibn Taymiyyah wrote a book on anti-Christian polemics, and I'll mention that later. Just remind me later to give you the name of the book. Then he had a student called Ibn Qayyim. Ibn Qayyim wrote a book as well on anti-Christian polemics. And I mean, I have covered it in my videos. Have a look at the videos. Yes, he's running already. And yeah, they've both written books, right, which have become the standard within modern Islam because they've both been translated into English and they're both over 300 pages, and I've read them both and they were terrible reading. And I've done talks on them, especially Ibn Qayyim's book. So, so that anti-Christian polemic, all those arguments that Muslims are repeating, that even Ahmad Didat to a large degree was repeating, comes from Ibn Hazm to Ibn Taymiyyah to Ibn Qayyim. Then there's a fourth guy, a man called Ibn al-Jabbar. Ibn al-Jabbar, he was the one who basically codified the principle that they would, or that made tradition, right? He set the precedent that they would attack the Bible rather than defend Christianity. So that comes from the 13th century, right? So this practice goes back to, so these practices that you see, the arguments you see, actually literally go back to the 12 and 1300s, right? So no, you don't. You just provide a verse and you misquote it. Yeah, yeah. Now look, I'm going to put you on mute and thank you. Have a nice day. Right now, as I said, the next thing out of your mouth, Yahya, needs to be the Shari ruling on Ridda, on apostasy, which is death, as we all know. And of course, the Shari ruling on Jihad from all the four schools, right? Pick one. And as we know, Jihad is to make war upon Jews and Christians to impose Islam, right? Now, so anyway, so I've mentioned Ibn Hazm, not much available of his writings, right? Not all of it's been translated into English, and it really was the fundamental basis, but it wasn't the most complete writings. Then you had his students who adapted it and improved upon it. Improved, if you want to call taking a dump on the Bible improving. And then, so then you've got Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim, and Ibn al-Jabbar, right? And Ibn al-Jabbar was the man who said, look, attack the Bible. Don't defend Islam, attack the Bible, because they know they can't defend Islam. Now, so Europe neutralized Islam. Europe effectively neutralized Islam, went bankrupt, right? Because they weren't able to. Oh wow! Thank you very very much. I'm really grateful for that. Thank you very much for the tip. Thank you. That goes a long way, and I do appreciate it. So now, what we have is Europe. So the old man of Europe, the sick man of Europe, Turkey, went bankrupt, defeated by the Poles and the Austrians and Germans, 1683, chased out of Europe. That process alone took 16 years. All right. Now, what you have is they no longer had jizya, which they were taking from captured dhimmis. They no longer had tribute. They were stealing, extortion. Dhimmis and jizya, that's really just extortion, slavery and extortion, right? So they went broke because they don't produce anything. Islamic countries do not produce anything. The text search doesn't work on the downloaded copy. I know for some reason it, yeah, look for bookmarks. Okay, so here, so Erkan, on that point, I'm going to type in the chat BKMK. Do a search for that term. You will come across a bunch of bookmarks that I've added into the book. In fact, I should save my current copy. So if you do an advanced search on BKMK, what you will find is that all of my notes are prefaced with that, and you'll find I've added little text notes inside, and all of them reference my notes where I've highlighted particular things. I will show that in a little bit if you wait. I think I can do that. So Stephen, thank you very much. Someone's coming as anonymous, but hey, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Okay, so guys, so now we have some understanding about the Islamic polemics, and we've covered that, and I will do it if you want live in the future. I can certainly talk about it. So historian, so for some reason in Europe, I think that the trauma of having to deal with Islam was so terrible that people just wanted to forget about it. It's like the beaten wife, whatever. And we simply forgot about the antagonism of Islam, right? The hatred that Islam has indoctrinately towards Western civilization and Christianity. So, as historian Hilaire Belloc observed, during the peak of the Western might and Muslim weakness, millions of modern people of the white civilization, that is the civilization of Europe and America, have forgotten all about Islam. They've never come in contact with it. They take for granted that it is decaying and that anyway, it is just a foreign religion which will not concern them. Unfortunately, that religion is very, very interested in them. It is, as a fact, the most formidable and persistent enemy which our civilization has had, and may at any moment become as large a menace in the future as it has been in the past. And unfortunately, with the infusion of oil money into Saudi Arabia, and the infusion of Western tech, know-how, and finances into the Islamic world, they have risen again out of the dust. So thank you, Dragona. And let me just check if there are any additional comments. So hi, and time forgets. So yeah, now thank you very much, Steffi. And okay, Guten Abend, Gottes Segen. Yeah, Falkenauge, 4. Nice. So, guys, now worse than forgetting, the West has rewritten history to fit postmodern paradigms. This whole idea of trying to please everyone, to be nice, is a serious problem. It's a serious trap. It is denial. It is quite literally denial. Hi, Echte Kafia. So today, whether taught in high school or college, or portrayed by Hollywood or the news media, the predominant historic narrative is that Muslims were the victims of intolerant Western Christians. Oh my gosh, Stephen, thank you. Wow, much appreciated. Thank you very much. Okay, now even otherwise objective history books contribute to this distorted thinking. They talk of Arab, Moorish, Ottoman, or Tatar. They rarely speak of Islamic or Muslim invasions. To think they use these euphemisms, Arab, Moorish. I used to wonder what the heck Moorish was when I was doing Othello in high school. Ottoman is something you sit on. Or Tatar, I mean that's thinly sliced steak you have as a starter, right? And rarely Islamic invasions. So we don't call things what they are. So they failed to mention that the doctrine of jihad caused these Muslims to assault the West. Now, this is history. So you might argue, so people say, look, this is old history. Why rehash history? Why not let it be and move on, begin a new chapter of mutual tolerance and respect, even if history has to be whitewashed? Edkin says Ottoman refers to Ottoman Empire of Turks, which replaced the Byzantine Empire. I know that. I'm well aware of that. But also in English, an Ottoman is a thing you sit on, right? Ottoman sofa. You can stick your feet in it. You can sit on it. So the problem is some religions are evil. Islam is an ideology of conquest. Islam is a religion of war. It is not a religion of peace. Remember, Islam divides the world effectively into two, and the laws have not changed. Yes, Steffi says the laws have not changed with the times. No, they cannot change because the Sharia is fixed. The Sharia are the eternal principles, the morals, the rulings of Allah from what He says, what He implies, and what Muhammad says, does, and implies. Right? That's the Sharia. And the scholars who've applied these principles, these morals, these doctrines, these ideas, these concepts to Islam, to the life of Islam, to the deen, who applied it to the life of the Muslim, that is the fiqh, right? That's the application of all these rules. So that's the fiqh. Now, this can never change. Unfortunately, don't forget the decrees of these scholars can never be changed, can never be abrogated. So yeah, so the doctrine of jihad, right? Unfortunately, is what's behind all of this. Now, around the globe, Muslims still exhibit the same imperial impulse because jihad in Islam, really, it's just Arab conquest. It is Arab imperialism. So we are seeing Arab imperialism, right? We're seeing their intolerant supremacism. Why? Because they say that we are the worst of beasts. Understand, we are the beasts of the wilderness. We are the lowest of creatures, the lowest of animals. The Muslims are the best of people, right? Yahya, in his incoherence, is the best of people. Us who actually study their stuff and are very diligent in presenting it accurately, we're the worst of creatures. We're the lowest of creatures, right? Allah hates us. And don't forget, Muslims are the vice regents. The term is vice regents. They are the vice regents of Allah on earth, very conveniently because Allah can't come to earth. Allah is all powerful, can do anything except come to the earth He apparently created. So the vice regents of Allah on earth are the Muslims who need to carry out His will in this life. So therefore, they will carry out their task. Now, a reported 215 million Christians are experiencing high levels of persecution, which have even officially been declared genocide, right? And this is happening mostly in the Muslim world, and others are experiencing a genocide in the name of jihad, right? So Dragona says, Lloyd, excellent explanation. You deserve much more subscribers. Well, thank you. I hope the channel will grow. I need to give it another year, I guess, and we shall see how it goes. Now, none of this genocide should be surprising. In classrooms all across the Islamic world, Muslim children are taught to glorify jihadi conquests and to despise those who do not worship Allah. And this, unfortunately, is the truth, right? Thank you very much, End Time, for that comment. I really, really am grateful. I appreciate that. So the progressive West demonizes European Christian history. 20 years ago, Christopher Columbus was a hero, and unfortunately today, he is painted as a villain, and unfortunately, this has now infected our higher education institutions. Mehmet the Conqueror was a pedophile whose atrocities against Eastern Europe make the Islamic State appear tame. Is praised every year in secular Turkey on the anniversary of the savage sack of Constantinople. Right. Don't forget, guys, you can download a copy of my notes, everything that I have here. It's in the description, and you can view it, right? It's in a OneNote database online, and you can search it, you can print it, you can make a PDF out of it. It's all available for you to follow along, right? So all of us who ignore history, we are destined to repeat this history. And what does this say of those who rewrite history in a way that demonizes their ancestors? We have been taught as Westerners to hate ourselves. Now, I've got my feet in two worlds, half Africa, half Europe, right? So in that sense, I think I am somewhat exempt from this, and I can see the third world nastiness. I see it from that side of my mind, sees this and appreciates it for what it is, the danger for what it is. But Westerners have been taught to hate themselves, to hate their culture, to be ashamed of their history, to have forgotten their history and not understanding their history, and they've been taught to accept lies and irrationality. And we need to say no. Um, yeah, America made this. Well, Islam made this, the communists made this, and we were complicit in it by not refusing it, by not saying no, by not knowing our own history, by not knowing our culture, defending it, and also knowing our religious principles and not defending it. They praise Islam and talk trash about Christianity. Faithful Christian says that is true. Yes, unfortunately, that is true. Now, we demonize our ancestors, we whitewash the crimes of the persecutors of our ancestors. Okay? Are they collaborators? Are they traitors to their people? And unfortunately, the answer is more than likely yes, right? Now, Stephen Gilchrist, Surah 98:6, End Time 2016 says, Ich auch, schönen Abend noch, Gottes Segen. Okay, no, excellent. So, Sweden alone. Now, let's have a quick look. Now, in the book, The Sword and Scimitar, which I mentioned earlier above, the history recounted in Sword and Scimitar is not repeating itself. Sword-waving Muslims are not forcing their way into Europe. Rather, various Western European nations are opening their doors to and submitting, like good dummies to Islamic aggression. In Germany, in the United Kingdom, crime and rape have soared in direct proportion to the number of these. YouTube's probably going to ban me if I say things like this. So, in terms of the number of refugees, these particular refugees from the PC religion, right? I see people are saying, do you have roots in Egypt or Morocco? Falkenauge? Nein, ich komme aus Südafrika. Denn meine Eltern, die sind Südafrikaner, und etwa vor 150 Jahren kamen auf meiner Mutterseite habe ich deutsche Familie, die kamen aus Schwaben, ich glaube aus Schwaben in den 1800ern, und die waren Farmer, die waren Bauer und die waren auch Priester. Ja. So yeah, sorry to translate that. My family, my mom's side of the family, we have German roots to my mother's side of the family, and so they came out of, I believe, Schwaben or Bavaria. So yeah. You can't tell just by looking at me, can you? So yeah, you're welcome. Keine Ursache. Yeah. So my mom's family originally, historically, comes from Bavaria. My father's family historically is a mixture between Dutch and Indonesian, as well as English. So a little bit mixed. Okay, so Sweden. So anyway, so what you've got is these countries are submitting willingly because they do not understand what they're dealing with. They don't understand the ideology. They've not taught it, and the problem with modern Christianity, with modern Westerners, we don't want to see evil. We don't believe in evil anymore. We want to believe the best of people. Unfortunately, we don't want to be uncomfortable. We don't want to accept the dirty and uncomfortable reality that we are dealing with something very, very violent, right? Something completely antithetical to our morals, to our principles, to our way of life, our way of thinking. Remember, we follow logos, right? That's our tradition, whereas they follow what is not logos. They follow will. They reject logos. They accept the narrative. The Sharia is the narrative. The Sharia is the final, the consensus of the scholars is the final determinant of what they believe, not the truth, right? So rape, for instance, has soared because these are the people that your right hand possess. When you have subjugated people, you have right over them. Sweden alone, where rape has increased, and I can go through some of the scriptures in the Sharia later. So, Sweden alone, rape has increased by 1,472% since that country embraced multiculturalism, is reportedly on the verge of collapse. Things are not well there, right? There's some pretty terrible reports. I've been watching some of that. So, now our era is called the information age. And of course, we are being shadow banned. We are being denied information. Information is being disappeared. This is not an age where people are well informed, but an age where disinformation is so widespread and unquestioned that people live in bubbles of alternate make believe realities. Now, it has been said that we are not looking for the truth, but a comfortable fiction we can live with. And unfortunately, I think this may well be true. Um, okay, so Michael de Vries, that would be Oberbayern rather than Schwaben. How so? Um, Wieso Oberbayern? So the biggest hypocrisy of the Western leftists is that they claim to be anti-racist, but they support the most racist religion. That yes, correct. For instance, it is the death penalty to claim that Muhammad is black. Now, really, I mean, it's the death penalty. So yeah, they definitely have a thing against black people. So faithful Christian, welcome. And okay, now, so what about the Crusades? Now I'll say here, the obvious response to this question is, what about the Crusades? What about them? Right? And I've provided, as you've seen earlier, I've provided the summary, the précis. There were something like 500 attacks on Christian lands, 500, over 462 years, right? Before, oh, they don't wear lederhosen in all of Bavaria. Okay. Okay, yeah, you're right. So, so what we have is 462 years of naked aggression, 28 countries invaded at minimum, right? Before the Catholic Church says, look, we need to put a stop to this. Before the Byzantine Empire says, look, we need help. We need to do something. Help us, please. So understand, they were tolerant for 462 years and they lost. Unfortunately, we lost more than 70% of what was Christian lands. So Stephen Gilchrist says, yes, be careful. You are telling the truth, but be careful of YouTube. There are dummies. Well, look, at some point they will come for me. The purge is on, right? Now, I live in Mississippi and a white supremacist called me a mongrel. I know it was meant to insult me, but I thought it was hilarious. No, okay, well, fine, yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, technically I'm a little bit mixed. So, so violence committed in the name of other religions is logically unconnected to the question of whether or not Islam is violent. By mentioning the Crusades, the hope of the Islamic and the equally common Chrislamic apologists and atheists for Islam, so which is really weird. LGBT for Islam, atheists for Islam. It's amazing how atheists attack Christianity and can defend Islam. Are they really atheists? Are they really? And Chrislamic apologists, are they really Christians? I have to wonder sometimes. Now, by mentioning the Crusades, the hope of these Islamic and, of course, the Chrislamic apologists and the atheists for Islam is to draw attention away from Islamic violence and paint religions in general as morally equivalent. And that's something I will take a look at today. And unfortunately, no, there is no moral equivalence. Now, in both Western academia and media, as well as the Islamic world, the Crusades are viewed as wars of aggression, fought by bloody-minded Christians against peaceful Muslims. This, unfortunately, is a narrative war that, to a large degree, they have won. They have simply overwhelmed us with false information because there is nothing in the Sharia that teaches love for the kafir. That simply does not exist. So, okay, if there's any comments I need to know, let me know. Okay, great. Dejan, how was the book? Let me know. So while the Crusades were bloody, they are more accurately understood as a very late Western response. Remember, delayed by 462 years. So Muslim rule in the Holy Land began in the second half of the 7th century during the Arab wave of Jihad, and there were conquests of Damascus and Jerusalem by the second rightly guided Caliph Umar. So I'm going to pause here for a moment, and I'm going to go to um, um, right. So I want to bring this up, something I've been working on. So let me. Okay, so this is something I want to bring up, right? I want to talk a little bit some of the statistics in terms of religious wars. This is something that atheists love to bring up. They love to accuse Christianity of being uber violent, right? They will also absolve Islam of violence because those people, they're not Westerners, so they must be innocent, right? Now, you can see the links here, right? You can download some of these for yourself to view them for yourself. So I'm going to look at what is called the Encyclopedia of Wars. The authors are Charles Phillips and Alan Axelrod, and they document the history of recorded warfare, and from their list of 1,763 wars. Now, note, this is not, okay, this is not a complete list. This is not a definitive list. They simply took major battles. This is not everything. Understood? Dayan says, book is great and Christians need to read it to learn what Islam did. It's only is missing part of the India invasion. They make a lot of, yes, they killed possibly up to 80 million Sikhs and Hindus. Yes, correct. So yeah, the invasion of India was probably the worst atrocity ever visited upon a nation in terms of genocide. So they say of 1,763 wars, only 123. Now this number is there's a little bit of dispute there, but it could be as low as 121. Some sources say 122, could be 123, have been classified to involve a religious cause, which accounts for less than 7% of all wars and less than 2% of all people killed in warfare. So in a second, Steffi, so think about it. People love to claim religion is the big all-time killer. Unfortunately, religion or wars where religion is found to have some kind of involvement or attachment is responsible for less than 2% of all people killed in warfare, and as something like 6.7% of all warfare can be in some way said to be related to religion. The balance is purely the standard political garbage that goes on and fights over land and other things. Steffi says, I have a question you can answer whenever, but how do peaceful Muslims rationalize the dichotomy between Islam in its purest form and their peace-loving version of it? They are lied to by their imams, right? Because most of them are not involved in direct jihad. Only a small minority, right, is obligatorily required to fight in jihad. So a very tiny amount. So the rest rationalize it away. They have been lied to. They believe their religion is perfect, therefore it can do no wrong. And if it can do no wrong, it can't do any harm. And if it can't do any harm, then it must be peaceful, right? And of course, they are taught to demonize Christianity. They're taught to demonize us. We are the worst of beasts. We are the beasts of the wilderness. We are the lowest of creatures, right? Jews are apes and pigs, according to the doctrine of Islam. Understand? So this is how they are taught. Now, of course, they won't tell you this. It's embarrassing to have this in public. So unfortunately, there's enough of them that that are part of rukhsa. Remember, they're no extremists. There is simply adherence to the law, strict adherence to the law, application of the Sharia as intended by Allah, azima. There's no extremism. There is azima. There's correct Islam. ISIS practiced Islam correctly. The Taliban practiced Islam correctly. The rest are not following correctly. They are considered to be weak, and therefore they are exempt from all of the strictness. However, jihad can become obligatory upon all given the right circumstances, and those may well occur. They're pushing towards that. So we are bad, they are good. We've been demonized. From the time of age of 5, they are taught we are bad. They are good, they are perfect. The religion is perfect. Muslims are better. Muslims are the best of people. So yeah, I hope that helps to answer that. Lexa Kafir says, remind atheists like me that our heads will be the first to cut if Islam wins. No dummy status for atheists. That is true, although in circumstances where they might need the money or the labor, they might well save you because they need you to work for them or they need to extract money out of it. So that has happened. Faithful Christian says, they atheists must show us one single verse from the New Testament that tells us to fight against non-Christians. Rather, we can only find the opposite. Exactly. Well, I mean, I've asked Muslims, show me where the Sharia says to love Christians. Show us where the Sharia says not to fight us. Show us where it says to love non-Muslims. It's a little hard to find, right? So, and I'm not much interested in, I work through the Sharia. I don't read the Quran much anymore. You're an ex-Muslim. Good to meet you. Hi there. Okay, well, good to meet you, faithful Christian. So peace is abrogated, correct, and actually within the Sharia, it makes that explicit that the peaceful verses were abrogated after the sacred months, right? So that is certainly made explicit. Erkan says, imagine what would happen if all Muslims actively involved. Yes, and it can happen. It's not impossible. Osama bin Laden was working towards them. That is part of the plan of Al Qaeda. So if they're told to engage in jihad, do you think they would do it? Some may not. However, understand that all Muslims are obligated anyway to engage in some form of jihad. And of course, there are 14 forms. Actually, let me step back here. Let me step back here. Let me go to. Oh wow! Thank you very much, Kodak. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Let me go here. I want to find this. Thank you very much for the support, Kodak. So let me go. I want to find. Um, okay, I'm going to bring up this for a second. I actually haven't read this in a long time. It's been probably a year or more since I've actually read this particular piece. But let me go through this. All Muslims are obligated to engage in jihad. Not all of them are obliged to engage in fighting. In fact, there's a rule against it that comes directly from the Quran. Okay, so out of every group of you, send only a troop. The rest must remain behind because they can't afford to lose everyone, right? And they also can't afford to make it obvious what they are doing. Yeah, that mythical small minority. So Ibn Qayyim's 14 categories. Now, don't forget, it's obligatory in Islam for a rich man to fund the jihad of others, right? It is obligatory if you have money to fund the jihad. Now, of the zakat, for instance, 1/8, roughly 15%, is obliged to go towards armed jihad. 1/8 of the zakat that Muslims must pay, their little tithing, is obliged to go to jihad. Okay, so I've thought this through long ago. So they've thought this through long ago. Wow. Yes, Steffi, they have. Okay, yes, they've thought this through very, very carefully. So Islamic scholars from the time of the Prophet until today have categorized jihad into at least, not only at least 14 categories. A cogent discussion of these categories is found in the book blah 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 by Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah. According to him, the categories of jihad are jihad against the hypocrites by heart. They have to hate you, right? They have to harden their hearts against you. Let them find harshness in you, right? That's in the Quran. By heart, by tongue. Remember, it is obligatory to lie to you. In fact, okay, I'll get to that. I'm going to do that bit where it's obligatory to lie to you for the benefit of Islam, by wealth and by person. In other words, sacrificing your life. Then there's jihad. Hypocrites are basically Muslims who are not practicing Islam correctly, right? These are Muslims who are not practicing Islam correctly, and they say, well, you guys aren't doing it right. We got to come and kill you. Then jihad against the unbelievers, that's you. By heart, by tongue, by wealth, by person. Jihad against the devil, fighting him defensively by rejecting false desires. Now, don't forget, though, that we are the Din al-Batil. We are the religions of Satan, right? Islam and Judaism are the religions of Satan. We are Din al-Batil. We are the worthless, void religions of Satan. So when they fight against Satan, they're fighting against us. They are removing evil from us by doing jihad against us. Understand? And jihad of the self. Now that's only the fourth lowest category, and that jihad of the self is based on what is known as a false hadith, a maudu, a fabricated narration. We have Ibn Rushd, his categorization of jihad, and he divides jihad into the categories of the heart, the tongue, the hand, and the sword. Now, according to the Sharia, the only relevant and only applicable ruling of jihad, right? The only legal ruling of jihad with any standing, is jihad of the sword, to kill. Because jihad is to make war upon Jews and Christians and non-Muslims to establish or to enforce Islam. That Steffi says, Muhammad hated our groups because Christians and Jews rejected him. Yes, that's one. Steffi says, now this reminds me of the Talmud a bit. Now, what is interesting is that the Sharia is effectively a ripoff of the Talmud. I've done various shows. They may still be on YouTube, although my friend's channel was removed. I actually want to bring him onto my channel to have a discussion about that. But I spent several months reading the Talmud. I did multiple shows on the Talmud, discussing the various lies about the Talmud. Now, this is not a defense of the Talmud, but I want to have honesty within the discussion and an accurate representation of what's in the Talmud. And I did multiple shows on Judaism and the Talmud, and Islam is effectively a ripoff of the Talmud. The Sharia law is effectively the Talmud rewritten. Yes. So, in fact, if you look at the terms, you look at the confluence of the terms, it's crazy. I mean, the similarity is just the overlap. It's a one-to-one correlation. Okay, you can go to the Sneakers Corner channel. I did a show on that, and I discussed that in detail. So on the Sneakers Corner channel, I discussed the correlation between the Sharia and the Talmud, and you'll see it's direct one-to-one correlations in many, many cases. So Codex says, but no surprise, they're borrowing and stealing from, yes, they borrowed and stole from all over the place. Okay, so yeah, look, at some point I'll do these talks on my channel as well. So notice jihad of the tongue, right, and jihad of the sword, combat of war. Jihad of the hand includes struggle by the sword, as when one fights the aggressor who attacks in combat of war. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to find this reference. Okay, so No, thank you, Stephen Gilchrist. That's great. Okay, yeah, at some point I will repeat those on my own show because I'll have more time to go without rushing. So I'm going to simply display. Uh, okay, now someone asked me earlier, I think it was Peter Shearer, that I was very grateful for his support. He wanted me to bring up truces. Now, there is more detail on this in the Hidayah, but I want to keep this simple. Truces, also known as treaties, known as hudna, right? That's hudna in Islam. As for truces, in sacred law, truce means a peace treaty with those hostile to Islam. Now, this does not mean that we are actively and aggressively hostile, that we are looking to do them harm physically. It means that we do not accept Islam. We are hostile to the message. And it involves a cessation of them fighting us for a specified period, whether for payment or for something else, the Daingeld. The scriptural basis for them includes such Quranic verses as an acquittal from Allah and His Messenger, Quran 9:1. If they incline towards peace, then incline towards it also. But this doesn't mean that if they are peaceful, don't fight them. It means if you fight them and they have the gall to fight you back, and then they stop fighting, well, then, accept that, So if you fight them and these bastards actually go and fight you back, these nasty people who fight back against you, killing them, horrible people, then give up, right? That's what that means. And that is Quran 8:61, as well as the truce which the Prophet made with the Quraysh in the year of Hudaybiyah, which is obviously Sunnah, it's an example. So truces are permissible, but not obligatory, right? And it says here, a truce is a matter of the gravest consequence because it entails the non-performance of jihad. Truces are not advised. Truces are to be avoided where possible. Truces are only to be performed if you are weak and cannot enforce your will through warfare. So it is the matter of the gravest consequences because it means you are not attacking and fighting them violently in jihad. So how is this a religion of peace? If giving up fighting is considered to be a problem, understand? Whether globally, I think globally generally means across the whole world, last I checked, or in a given locality, and our interests must be looked after therein, which is why it is best left to the caliph. Now, it also says, now this is more explicitly stated in the Hidayah. Okay, this is more explicitly stated in the Hidayah. I'm not going to go there today. I have done this in shows with Thaddeus in the past, but I will come back to that in the future. There must be a purpose other than the mere preservation of the status quo. Now, how this is important is that the truce must benefit Islam. The truce must be as good as or better than war. The truce must allow them to organize to do something to benefit Islam and to undermine you, to destroy you and to benefit them, to put them ahead, give them an advantage, which is better than war at that point. However, the moment they have the strength, they are to drop the treaty and fight. Understand? So do not be faint-hearted and call for peace when it is you who are the uppermost. Understand? So this is the application of that. I said the Hidayah is a bit more explicit about this. So yeah, Stephen Gilchrist says Islam is only a religion of peace once you submit and surrender. Until then, you're fought until you're killed. Now, yes, now understand, Islam divides the world into the Dar al-Harb. Actually, you know what, since we are on this topic, we're fine. This is actually worth looking up. So Islam divides the world into the Dar al-Harb. Now, the Dar al-Harb and the Dar al-Islam. The Dar al-Islam is the House of Islam, also known as the House of Peace, right? Because Islam is where the peace of Islam reigns. The Dar al-Harb is the House of War, also known as enemy lands, right? The Dar al-Harb is enemy lands. Anything that is not an Islamic country is an enemy land. In other words, by default, you are an enemy because you're not a Muslim. By default, you are in an enemy territory, enemy country, because you're not a Muslim, because you're not Islamic, because Sharia does not reign. Understand? Because Islam is not found there. You do not have the protection of Islam to protect you from their violence. Understand? So the House of Peace is where the Dar al-Islam, the Dar al-Harb, sorry, the Dar al-Islam, the House of Dar al-Salam. It's the House of Peace, the House of Islam, blah blah. Everywhere else is the Dar al-Harb, right? And they must turn all of the Dar al-Harb into the Dar al-Islam. So ultimately, at the end of the day, you could say it is mentioned that basically implied that once the whole world is covered with Islam, then you'll have the Dar al the Dar al Salam, the house of peace. You are a harbi, okay? So that you are a harbi. You're basically someone who's at war with them. But understand, so they talk about enemy lands on a constant basis, right? But this is something, so enemy lands, okay? The Dar al Harb, just enemy lands. You are an enemy, and that's enemy lands. And now I wanted to do something. Okay, so now let me go to permissible lying. So now within the Sharia, let's go to permissible lying. I think it's R 8.2, but good grief. Okay, there we go. Permissible lying. Found it. Now, Islam, for instance, Yahya and everyone will say, no, we don't lie in Islam, which is a lie. It's amazing. They lie about lying. In Islam, it's legal to lie about lying. It's crazy stuff, right? In Time says there was a cartoon by Dry Bones where you see two elderly Bedouins watching two jihadis wearing explosive belts about to commit a terror attack. Says one of the Bedouins, if we didn't know that they're doing it in the name of the religion of peace, one would think they are enemies of a doomsday death cult. Yeah, yeah. Stephen says, what currency do Muslims receive the jizya in? Yeah, good question, dude. Whatever. Jizya, that's again the hidayah for the jizya. Now, understand lying. So, what religion, and this is not a religion, don't forget it's a deen. What religion teaches lying, has a doctrine of lying, right? So we have unlawful lying, and then we have permissible lying in section R 8.2, and then circumventing those, forbidding the permissible. So we don't want them to impose Islam. We are forbidding the permissible. It is permissible to impose Islam. We are forbidding it. So therefore, we must be lied to circumvent us from forbidding them. Do you understand that? Required lying. In fact, it's obligatory. Now, here's the thing. It's actually obligatory. So they speak of obligatory lying. And in fact, all lying is obligatory. So let's look at the section on permissible lying. This section effectively comes from Al-Ghazali, okay, who's the major scholar of Islam, the major scholar of Islam after Muhammad. And he wrote this, and they take his opinion on this. The Prophet said, he who settles disagreements between people to bring about good or says something commendable is not a liar. So in other words, when you lie to bring about peace, you're not lying, which is a very interesting definition. And the Prophet did not lie except for three things. War. They are at war, so they may lie. Settling disagreements. Well, they don't want to have nastiness online, do you? They don't want to have nasty words, right? So let's lie to you, right? And a man talking with his wife, so you can lie to your wife. Awesome. Now, notice, this is an explicit statement that lying is permissible for a given interest. Lying is permissible for a given interest. It is lawful, right? There are criteria defining what types of lying are lawful. So Islam is the religion of lying. The best analysis is Imam Ghazali, who says, speaking is a means to achieve objectives. If a praiseworthy aim is attainable through telling the truth and lying, it is unlawful to accomplish through lying because there is no need for it. So if you don't need to, don't. When it is possible to achieve such an aim by lying, but not by telling the truth, it is permissible to lie if attaining the goal is permissible. So if it is permissible to attain the goal, if Islam says, well, if you can convert someone to Islam, then it's permissible to lie to him because the goal is permissible, right? And of course, when the purpose of lying is to circumvent someone who is preventing one from doing something permissible, right? And obligatory to lie if the goal is obligatory. It is obligatory for a Muslim to lie if the goal is obligatory. Now, answer me this. When is it not permissible to spread Islam? When is it not permissible to make Allah dominant? When is it not permissible to convert anyone to Islam? When is it not permissible? Never. Edkin says, and no one will convert to Islam when they hear the truth. Correct. Kodik Mana says, I thought the Muslims believe in the Torah as well. Haven't they ever come across Exodus 20:16? Just quote me that because I don't know the Bible offhand, but they claim to supersede Moses. Don't forget, they claim to supersede. They claim to abrogate the New Testament. So they supersede, they abrogate most of it. However, so basically what remains of those religions that came before Islam is what Muhammad explicitly mentions as still valid. Everything else is taken as abrogated completely. Thou shalt not bear false witness, of course, yeah. Don't forget, Muhammad broke every one of the 10 commandments, right? So understand. So it is obligatory for a Muslim to lie if the goal is obligatory, right? I hope that. Do you guys have any questions? Anything you want me to get to? Anything that's important for you? Yeah. Okay. So now there was something else I wanted to get to as well. There was another section. Oh, yeah. Actually, let me go. Let me go here. So I want to skip to the Hedaya, okay? And I want to cover this. Now we're talking again about the jihad, right? Why they commit jihad. And the Hedaya is far more detailed. If Islam is the truth, so Stephen Gilchrist says, if Islam is the truth, what's with all the lies? Because it's not predicated on logos, it is predicated on will. Understand? Allah is a makr, right? Allah is a makr. I covered this yesterday in the show. Allah is a makr. So to limit Allah is to sin, because Allah can do anything. Allah can do everything. Now don't forget, Yahweh cannot do contradictories. God cannot lie. God cannot be untruthful. God cannot do sin and evil because he's perfect. He's good. He is the epitome of good and the epitome of truth. To say that Allah can't do something is to sin against Allah, because Allah can do anything. So Allah is will, which means Allah can sin, Allah can lie, Allah can do evil. That's why Allah can be a makr. Right? That's why he can lie. Yeah, thou shalt lie to spread Islam. Deceiver, exactly. He's a deceiver. So they must have a different codex on the commandments. They reject. Islam is a rejection. It's an inversion of Christianity. It's an inversion of the New Testament. It is a reaction to. And in fact, it's very Islam is a Gnostic religion. If you read the Sharia, you start to get into it, you will see blatantly it states Islam is a Gnostic religion. There are strong elements from Marcionism, there are elements from Manichaeanism, there are elements from Gnostic sects of Judaism. You'll find words and phrases and things that are related to that all throughout it. But the scholars, it's a cult. It's an occult religion that's based on Gnosticism, right? And it's a mishmash of a whole bunch of things. So this is the Hedaya. This is called it's book 9, page 140. It is called the Institutes. Okay, and here they speak of the rules of war. So they will speak of, and I've mentioned this before, but I guess repetition is important, on the manner of waging war. And the Sirah is about the Prophet in his wars, and his wars, whatever he did was right. So war is sufficiently observed, the sacred injunction concerning war is sufficiently observed when it is carried on by any one party or tribe of Muslims. It is then no longer of any force with respect to the rest. So Steffi and Stephen and some of you asked, not all of them, no. When some do it, the rest are no longer required to do it. War must be carried on against the infidel. Now notice, see this in blue. War must be carried on against the infidels at all times by some party of the Muslims. War must always be carried out. Always. And it says here, it is established as a divine ordinance by the word of Allah. I have no idea why. So it is established as a divine ordinance by the word of Allah, who said, slay the infidels. And also by saying of the Prophet, war is permanently established until the day of judgment, right? For the purposes of advancing the true faith. The purpose of Islamic Jihad is to advance Islam. So they speak of ordained war to be waged against the infidels, known as the Holy War. Right. So let me see, I had some comments. How can they prefer Allah over Yahweh? I'll never understand. But Jesus predicted Islam hundreds of years before it was born. The spirit of the Antichrist, those who would kill Christians as a service to God. Unfortunately, that is precisely the case. They believe they are doing good. If you read through the Hidayah, they believe they are doing good. They're doing right. They're wiping evil from the earth. So I'm curious to know, in the context of lying and it being a sin to bear false witness, what is the equivalent in Islam to the commandments of God? No, every single rule under hiyal, under the principle of hiyal, which is a means that they use. Hiyal is legal. It's legal trickery. So it's probably their primary form of lying, right? Hiyal, HIY. I have a show on the channel. Have a look. I discuss this in detail. Hiyal allows them to break every single law, rule, promise, oath, contract, treaty. There's nothing in Islam that cannot be broken. Nothing. Not a single thing. It does not exist. Understand? So there is no absolute principle. Everything is permitted. Everything is permitted. Understand that. Okay. So Nicholas Paulson's just got home, will not join this live stream, but instead watch from the beginning later. Haven't had sup yet. Me neither. I will take a break soon. Only pop by to say hello. Thank you very much. Much appreciated, Nicholas. Thank you very much. Try to buy the Sira translated by Alfred. You don't have to buy it. I have links to it. Check in my other shows. I've got links to it, and I can actually find you the link to the Sira. I have all of these books, so I can provide you with a download link to all of this. Um, I wouldn't say religion is treachery, Stephanie, but some religions are evil. A religion of treachery. Yes, yes, yes. Religion of treachery. There's no absolute principle. Yes, there is no absolute principle. It's will. Yahweh is logos, reason, logic. Allah is will. It's a completely different concept of the universe, of rationality. Hey, Veronica. Yeah, you're late. Do you have a note? Okay, if you can just send me the note as to why you are late. Let's have a look. Understand, Muslims making war. Okay, so if Muslims make war, okay, some Muslims, if a single tribe, the obligation is no longer binding upon the rest. However, if no Muslims were to make war, the whole of the Muslims would incur the criminality of neglecting it. The criminality of neglecting it. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead. The Prophet has said, we are directed to make war upon men until such time as they shall confess there is no God but Allah. Understand? They pay the jizya, and if they pay the tax, war is terminated. So infidels, okay, actually, let me go ahead. Let me just go back here to something in case there was anything I missed. No, let's have a look here. Notice it says in the red, people will perceive that they are attacked for the sake of religion. They must perceive that they are attacked for the sake of religion, not for the sake of taking their property. On this consideration, it is possible that they may be induced to agree to the call in order to save themselves the trouble of war. If a Muslim attacks infidels without calling them, he's an offender. So if they do not call you to Islam and attack you, they are offending, right? They're breaking the law. It's forbidden. But yet, notice how nothing is sacred. If they do attack you and he kills you, he slays you, and he takes your property, there is no atonement, because that which protects, namely Islam, does not exist in those whom you killed. This is the Hidayah. Let me just go. I'm on page 158. So let me go up here. This is the Hidayah. This is the most important book of Sharia within the Hanafi school. This is the jewel of the Hanafi school. This is the crowning jewel of the Hanafi school of fiqh. This is the major accomplishment of the mujtahids, of the fuqaha of the school, of the Hanafi school of jurisprudence. This is the prime. This book is literally still in use in various countries today. It's still in use in Pakistan, for instance, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. It's still in use in Islamic courts. In fact, the Supreme Court of Pakistan still uses this. The court system still uses this book. This is volume 2, by the way. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so where was I? I just lost my page number again. So let me go here, see if I can find my page number. Uh, right, so do you have any questions about Jihad so far? Are there any comments on this? Okay, so I'll skip through a bunch of the stuff and I'll bring up this because I will come back to these again and again to remind you and teach you this. See, any single Muslim is empowered to make war upon the infidels. Notice, any single Muslim is empowered to make war upon infidels, wherefore they fear him. We are to fear them. I shared volume 1 yesterday. Yeah, can I share volume 2? Yes, I can. Actually, let me have a look here. See if I have volume 2 available. Hidayah. Of course, here it is. The Dia Volume 2. So I'm going to send you this link, which is to archive.org. So I'll send you 2 links. This is archive.org is where you can find a bunch of these things. So this is the Dia Volume 2 on archive.org. And this is my personal copy link. This is my personal link. Okay, this is to the actual PDF I'm reading from with all my notes and annotations and such. That's this one. Archive.org is a great resource to get anything. So understand, we have to fear them. They must make us afraid, wherefore they fear him. because the object of fear is the object to which to look for protection. The object of fear, the thing you fear, is the thing that you need to go to for protection. And a single Muslim is the object of fear. Right. So, any questions or comments so far? Okay, so this is their Daya Volume 2, right? And it goes into incredible detail on dhimmis, jizya, jihad, as well as slavery. If you want to find out about slavery, this is the book to find out all about Islamic slavery. Right. So any questions? Successful with terror. Yeah, but this goes well beyond this. It doesn't just have a verse, it actually goes into deep detail explaining exactly how they do all this. Okay. There's loads of books that I can come to. So for instance, there's Jihad is the Way, right? Leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, right? Something like this. There's this fantastic book, The Virtues of Jihad, The Shortest Path to Paradise. Right. You have a wonderful by Maulana Muhammad Masood Azhar, right? And this is a modern guy. This is written recently, right? Fairly recently. We Muslims cannot renege in our responsibility and should make haste to join the army of Allah in the struggle to elevate Allah's word and the implementation of Sharia. So we have to motivate and urge the believers towards the forgotten obligation of jihad. Yeah. Muhammad said people fear him if he's, yeah, in other words, no, they must be so afraid of him as if their fear must be a month's journey long. The fear must extend that far. They must be that afraid. Now notice, this is an instruction manual, right? This man has caused a lot of problems in India and Pakistan. There is no deed equivalent to jihad. The mujahid, this is the one who fights in jihad, is the most superior of Muslims. He's the most superior in terms of his devotion. To wish for children for the cause of jihad, to have children to make jihad, the reward of spying in jihad. Let's have a look. The purchasing of weapons for jihad. Now, if jihad is about inner peace, what kind of weapons do you need for that? The glad tiding of fighting against the Jews. The order to fight and to take a pledge of allegiance for death. Fantastic stuff. Okay. I have a show on this, on the virtues of jihad. You can have a look at it. I don't do the whole book. I just do a little bit of it, but it's on the videos on my channel, the virtues of jihad. Okay. So, oh, Hindus, do not think that the Mujahideen are weak. If you will shoot one bullet, the Mujahideen will answer with a rocket launcher because we are propagating the work of jihad. And he is now, this guy is happy because we are seeing a true Islamic state in Afghanistan under the Taliban. The literal definition of jihad, which means to make substantial effort, but to make the utmost effort, blah, blah, blah. But now he says, so that's the literal, the colloquial definition of jihad. And I'll end up soon, guys. But the explanation of jihad in Shari terms, the scholars of jurisprudence have agreed that jihad means to fight in the path of Allah or anything aiding this course. Okay? Jihad means, in Hanafi fiqh, jihad means to be involved in fighting in the path of Allah by one's wealth, life, and speech. Again, jihad of the tongue. Jihad of the sword, dying, killing and dying, and jihad with wealth. The Muslims are to fight the kuffar in Maliki fiqh to advance Allah's religion, Shafi fiqh. The meaning of jihad in Shari terms is to make the utmost effort of fighting in the path of Allah. In Hanbali fiqh, jihad means to fight against the unbelievers. They do what the leaders say, correct? Coco Jasmine, average Muslim is not aware of the depth of Sharia law and complexity of jihad. No, they are not. And no, we need to get this out there. So the ruling of jihad from Imam Saraksi, jihad is obligatory and commanded by Allah. Any person who denies jihad is a kafir, and people who doubt the obligation of jihad have gone astray. That's from the Fatul Qadir. Look, they are victims, Coco. I will say that, yes, they are victims. They're still very, very dangerous. They're still incredibly, potentially dangerous. So, for instance, someone who is a mass murderer, someone who is a serial killer might have been abused by his parents. He was a victim. But he might still kill 30 people. Understand? That doesn't take away the danger. So he speaks of offensive jihad. Okay. And don't forget that the commencement of attack is preferable. It's preferable that they attack you. The Muslims are to fight against you. Offensive jihad is fard kifaya. It is an obligation that is communal, right? Falls upon all the Muslims. It is to ensure that the kafir remains terrorized so that the message of Islam can be conveyed without obstruction. One group of Muslims fulfill this obligation on behalf of all Muslims. And if there are no Muslims fulfilling this obligation, then everyone is considered sinful. Understand? The same message repeated. This goes from the reliance to the Hidayah to all of them. I mean, you can go to multiple Sharia manuals. And let me just continue with this nonsense. We go, yeah, enough of that. This book, yeah, it's available on the video. So understand, you'll find definitions of jihad. And yeah, anyway, so enough of that. Right, so guys, I should end here. So we were speaking about what it means. Okay, so I'm just gonna close Adobe Acrobat, back to OneNote. Right, so understand, we've got these different kinds of jihad. And the next show, when I talk about this, I'll finish up my talk on the Crusades. Right, and what I will do is I'll probably switch and go to a talk on, right, I will probably, once I finish this, the next time I do a show, we'll see when that is. The next time I do this, I will then probably switch to Islamic slavery, and we'll start talking about the phenomenon of Islamic slavery and how it's fully legal, and just that they have run the largest slave trade on earth, the most vicious, nasty, biggest amount of slaves in history. It's insane. So yeah, final comments. Michael says, is this stuff common knowledge to Muslims? Michael, I don't know. You know, it's hard to tell. It's really, I think to some degree they know. I think it's implicitly or explicitly they know, but they turn a blind eye to it. They can't admit it to you anyway. Understand? They can't betray Islam. They can't besmirch Islam. They can't make the religion look negative. They would be then at they would be sinning. They would be committing a crime, and they would be guilty of blasphemy. So understand, it's really, really hard to tell. I think they are more knowledgeable of this than we are aware of. I think they just lie. They lie to themselves, they lie to us. It's hard to tell. In many cases, they are ignorant. Yes, but are they lying to us? We don't know. It's hard to know. Understand? I'm assuming they do know. Actually, if I had to make a guess, I'd lean towards yes, they do. Maybe not explicitly, not every word, but they get the gist of it. They know. Now, Um, they also do what their leader says. Erkan says, yeah, you're seeing a religious legal ruling explicitly ordering terror. Yes. And Coca Jasmine, is this the result of seeing the world as black and white, Muslim versus? Yes, it's very much the case. The Dar al Harb versus the Dar al Islam, them versus us. It's that simple. And yeah, it goes on like this. So yeah. So guys, yeah. So we can just end off here, right? So they imposed the jizya. They made dhimmis out of the Christians and Jews who were in Jerusalem at the time, were in the Holy Lands at the time. Okay? Now, being a dhimmi is a terrible, terrible fate. Understand? So we can cover that another time. It's in depth in the Hidayah. I've given you the links, so use that. I can post those in, and also this book that I showed, The Virtues of Jihad, just a little bit. Ibn Taymiyyah is the main scholar in Sunni Islam who has defined the rulings on jihad, right? He is the main scholar. Um, Actually, if I bring up Ibn Taymiyyah's book, you'll see, but yeah, for another time, guys. So yeah. Okay. So guys, I don't know when I should make another show. Possibly I can do one tomorrow to do another show, but I might, next Sunday, I'm not available. I can be available next Monday evening, but next Sunday, I'm not available. And yeah, I might try and fit in one more this week. And also I have to move my talk with Shamun Kakan. I need to move that. It seems I have to work a little bit later than expected on Thursday. So guys, if you have anything, drop it in the comments below. Thank you for the support. Thanks for the great discussion. I hope this was useful, that you learned a lot, and I need to get some food and call it a day. And yeah, anything, drop it in the comments. Any last minute comments, say it now. But thank you, Steffi. Much appreciated as well. Appreciate the support. So guys, I'll call it here. So have a wonderful night. Have a great week, and I'll see you guys in the comments. All right. And take care.